Hey everyone, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're doing something a little different. We're literally dissecting the anatomy of a paragraph. Think about the last time you sat down to read a really dense report for work, or maybe a massive textbook chapter for your studies. Have you ever felt like you're reading page after page, but absorbing absolutely nothing? Like, you get to the very bottom of the page, blink, and think to yourself, wait, what in the world did I just read? Well, if that's you, you're absolutely not alone. It's actually an incredibly common frustration. So our goal today is to permanently transform you from a passive reader, someone who just kind of lets the words wash over them, into an active, structural reader who extracts meaning with total precision. Let's get right into it.
Here's our quick roadmap for The Explainer. First, we'll diagnose the core reading problem. Then we'll build our skills from the ground up by identifying the topic, locating the main idea, and sifting for details. And finally, we'll pull it all together so you can walk away a true master reader.
All right, starting off with Section 1, the reading problem and breaking those bad habits. So many of us really struggle with reading slowly, missing vital information and basically just falling behind on everything we need to process. But why exactly does this happen? Well, the root of the issue often lies in habits we formed a long time ago. Actually, a lot of readers still process text exactly the way they did in the 6th grade. Think about how we were originally taught to read, right? Sounding out words, focusing hyper-intently on phonetics. An inefficient reader often moves their lips, traces their fingers along the line of print, and essentially just reads for pronunciation. It's like they're reading out loud inside their own head, burning all this cognitive energy just focusing heavily on individual words. But a skillful reader? They take in whole phrases at a single glance. They've leveled up, reading for comprehension and overarching meaning, not just mechanically sounding out syllables.
Okay, so let's dive into the actual solution here. To break that deeply ingrained bad habit and start reading rapidly and accurately, you need purposeful practice. And that practice comes down to 3 core skills we're going to break down today. Number 1, identify the topic. Number 2, pick out the main idea. And number 3, recognize the supporting details. Mastering these 3 steps, it's an absolute game changer for how you interface with written information.
Moving right along to Section 2, identifying the topic, finding the subject.
We're going to start with the absolute foundation, scaling right down to the smallest unit of the anatomy. So, what exactly is the topic? Simply put, it's the core subject of the whole paragraph. It's what the entire text is about. And here's the absolute key thing to remember. It can easily be expressed in just 1 or 2 words. We're not talking about a full sentence here. It's the umbrella term that covers everything being discussed. When you read, you should really always stop and ask yourself, okay, what is the writer fundamentally trying to say here? The concept or subject that immediately pops into your head, that's usually your topic. Honestly, if you can't name the topic in a single breath, you probably haven't truly grasped the paragraph yet.
Let's put that to the test with our first interactive challenge. I want you to figure out what the topic of the sociology text we're about to read is. Is it A, communication in groups, B, definition of a group, C, social limitations, or D, size of groups? Keep these 4 distinct options in mind as we evaluate the text.
All right, here's the authentic academic excerpt. Notice the language as I read it out. The term groups has long been a pivotal concept of sociology. A group is any number of human beings in reciprocal communications. It may be well to emphasize certain aspects and implications of this short definition. First, a group refers only to persons in communication. Second, a group may be of any size. Now scan that text. Instead of reading every single word just for pronunciation, I want you to actively hunt for that overarching theme. What is the writer fundamentally trying to discuss?
Well, if you guessed B, definition of a group, you completely nailed it. Now let's look at why the other options fall short. Communication and size? Yeah, they're definitely mentioned in the text, but they're really just parts of the broader definition. They aren't the main subject. It's not just about the size or just the communication. Those are just characteristics. This perfectly illustrates how a massive, multi-layered academic paragraph can literally be distilled down into a simple, precise topic. The whole paragraph exists for one reason and one reason only, to unpack that one single concept.
Which brings us to Section 3, locating the main idea, the topic sentence.
Now that we've totally mastered the word level, let's see how this builds at the sentence level. Once you have your 1 to 2 word topic, your very next step is to find the main idea. The main idea is usually directly stated by the writer in a specific sentence, which we call the topic sentence. Think of the topic sentence as the structural backbone of the entire paragraph. It explicitly tells you what the rest of the text is going to be about, kind of holding all the other ideas, evidence, and examples together.
If you find the topic sentence, you've basically unlocked the entire purpose of the paragraph.
But here is where it gets really fun. You kind of have to act as a bit of a detective, because where does the topic sentence actually hide? We're so often taught that it's always the very first sentence, right? But that is absolutely not always true. I mean, it can be at the beginning, sure, but it can also be buried right in the middle as the narrative shifts, or hidden at the very end as a grand conclusion. Or sometimes, a writer might even repeat it twice, once at the beginning and once at the end, just to make absolutely sure you didn't miss their central point.
Now, what's really interesting about this specific slide is how the writer structures their point to build up to the main idea. They actually list out a bunch of actions first. They say, on arriving, the good listener chooses a seat where seeing and hearing are easy. Finally, when the speech is over, they review what was said. And then, boom, at the very end, they drop the topic sentence. Thus, an effective listener takes specific steps to achieve accurate understanding. They gave you all the supporting evidence first, basically forcing you to follow their logic, and completely hid the main idea right at the finish line. Moving to Section 4, Sifting for Supporting Details. Finding the evidence.
So we're broadening our scope now to encompass the entire paragraph, examining the relationship between the main idea we just found and the rest of the text. Supporting details are all the facts, ideas, and examples which the writer uses to establish or completely back up their main idea. As a really strong reader, you have to mentally sift through the text. It's kind of like a gold miner panning for gold in a river. You have to separate the absolutely essential facts that establish the main idea from all the fluff, the stylistic flair, or the information that literally just repeats what's already been said.
Let's try another rapid-fire test of your visual sifting skills. Take a look at this main idea. An individual deals with anxiety in a variety of ways and produces a wide range of responses. Now, which of the following details we're about to look at does not actually support this main idea?
Okay, we have anxiety manifests physically, fear is a response to danger, anxiety produces powerlessness, blindness or deafness can be extreme responses, and some cannot cope with anxiety. Did you spot the odd one out? Yeah, it's the second point. Fear is a response to danger. Now, while it sounds somewhat related emotionally, and it definitely exists in the same general semantic field, it doesn't actually support our core topic of how an individual deals with anxiety. It's totally irrelevant to the main idea being constructed. Identifying and immediately tossing out those irrelevant points, or distractors, is exactly how you effectively sift text for way greater reading efficiency.
And finally, Section 5, Becoming a Master Reader, bringing it all together.
We've covered the 3 vital components, so let's bring all these core skills together into one unified, highly effective strategy. So the crucial point is this mental map right here. Whenever you face a dense block of text, I want you to run this exact 3-step process. 1. Ask yourself, what is the topic? And answer it in just 1 or 2 words. 2. Hunt down and locate the topic sentence, wherever it might be hiding. And 3. Logically sift the supporting details from the non-essential fluff. Honestly, when you stop trying to just memorize a sequence of words and instead start plugging concepts into this framework, your reading speed and comprehension are going to absolutely skyrocket. This is your ultimate blueprint for rapid, accurate understanding.
And this brilliantly illustrates the ultimate philosophy of today's explainer. Reading seeks the author's thoughts rather than their words. Let's just pause on that for a second. The phrase, rather than the individual word, is the true unit of thought. The words, they're simply the vehicle delivering the idea. You really need to let that completely reframe how you look at a page from this point forward. You are no longer scanning for pronunciation, you are actively hunting for ideas.
Which leaves me with one final thought for you. The next time you open a book, a complex article, or an intimidating report, will you simply read for pronunciation like you did back in the 6th grade, or will you embrace this new blueprint, step back, and actively hunt for the author's core thoughts? The choice and the mastery is now entirely in your hands. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer.